Hello, am I audible?
Chanel, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I'm checking.
Zachary is going to step up and promote attendees to panelists. Thank you.
Sorry, who's going to?
Zachary.
Yes,
Oh,
I
okay.
will.
Oh, good. I was going to break you in, and we never got a chance to do that. I'll send you the spreadsheet, or do you have it already?
Susan forwarded it to me.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Right here.
And Susan, well, Susan can't be, but I should co-host.
This is
Well, good thing I finished my meal. And
Chanel, I would like
How many are we there?
3, 2, 4.
Four.
I'm five.
four. And Brian is on his way.
Okay, but let's wait for him, and we'll start with or without a quorum then.
Okay, and
Oh,
Chanel,
that's Anita under the hat. It's hard to see.
can you check Chanel to see if Dehan is here? And if Dehan is here, can you remember please to introduce him to the committee?
Let me see.
All right, then.
I don't
That's
see
that.
the
Say hi.
He might be an attendee. Oh, you're in
I'm
the.
in attendance.
Okay.
Ryan is here.
The eagle has landed.
The flashing helmet. Okay.
Turn off the
We're six, good. Is everyone ready in the room?
Yeah.
So.
You may start the recording.
It's going.
Okay. This is Manhattan Community Board 2, the second meeting of the December Landmarks Committee. We're down to 2 applications. If anyone is here for 66 and 68 Horatio Street, 150 Mercer Street, and 5759 Christopher Street, all of those have laid over or withdrawn from this meeting. So we'll hear only Great Jones Street and 13th Street. I'm not going to, since we're only 2, I'm not going to go through the whole procedure. I just ask that everyone be careful to speak only about landmarks matters. Members of the public can speak after others and on the committee and board members and guests. And please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. We'll begin now with 3 Great Jones Street. The application is to modify 3 masonry openings and install new windows. Zachary, just.
Yeah, I believe we have OSTOP. Here, his was listed on the spreadsheet. Yes, there we go. I'm about to promote you to panelists. I just hit it. So OSTOP, you're gonna have to accept and you'll be coming in as a panelist. 1 second. Oh.
Hello.
Okay.
Can you also promote this one? That's my desk that has the file.
Sure, just did it.
And would I be able to screen share from it?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll start the screen share. Hello, everybody. My name is Ostap. I'm the architect working on Great Jones. So I'll run through the presentation. The property is 3 Great Jones Street. It's located in the NoHo district. It's highlighted here on the map. So it's on Great Jones Street between Broadway and Lafayette. The building is also, it faces Great Jones Street, but it has a secondary facade on an alley, which is private and gated. So you can see here, this is the subject building. Great Jones Street is running diagonally in this direction. And there's an old alley that the facade we're working on is facing. These are the landmarks designation photos from 1999 when it was designated. So you can see the front facade here on the left side and a portion of the secondary facade facing the alley. And 1940 tax photo of 3 Great Jones Street. This is the primary facade facing Great Jones. There's no photo of the other facade. And then a photo from a few months ago, 2023, in its current state on the right side in color. We did view angle studies looking towards the area where the proposed work is happening, which is, I don't know if you can see, let me see if I can highlight it for you. I guess I can't annotate, but it's up at the top of the page. That's where the 2 windows are, if you can see the cursor kind of moving.
Yep.
And so we do studies from the public street and trying to see if we can see those windows. A3, you can see the very edge of them a little bit through the gate. This is with the gate open, so you can see the edge of the windows there, where the arrow is. And then going, this is more towards Broadway. You obviously can't see them because they're hidden by the other building. And then going closer towards the gate with the, and then actually taking the camera between the bars of the gate and trying to see what the view is if we actually went right up to the gate and tried to look through the bars, what we would see. And so the 2 windows we're looking at are these ones that are next to the truck. And this view is from Bond Street, from the opposite side of the alley. So again, you can see it's gated at both sides. And again, you can't even tell where the window is from the south end. This is the alley facade, the western side. So this is opposite of our property. And what's notable here is this window, storefront window for a tailor. So you can see it's a large opening with a large glass door. And this is directly opposite of our property, 3 Great Jones Street. And it's highlighted here, you can see it. And this is the subject property that we're dealing with today. 3 Great Jones Street is starts from here on the left side. That's Great Jones Street. You can see the gate. And the older portion of the building, which is the 5-story portion of the building, which is the original building, from, I think it's, let's see how old it is. Actually, I don't have the date. Oh, 1844, it is the older portion. And the rear portion of our property, which is a 2-story structure, was added later in the 1920s. I think it was 1926. What else is notable about this facade is that it features a bunch of different kinds of openings. So you have double hung windows. On this 3rd level, you have windows that are divided into 3. You have outswinging windows that swing out. And you even have some that are filled in with plywood, as well as fixed lights that are just fixed glass, not even double hung.
Sir, could you enlarge this a bit so we can see more clearly?
Yes, sure, I will. And these are the 3 windows we're dealing with, just for context, so you get an idea of which windows we're talking about for the modification. And this is the enlarged view. So you can see the different types of windows, like these are divided into 3. These are swinging windows. This one's blocked in with plywood. And then you have single light fixed windows here and here. And these are the 3 windows we're dealing with bars. The other thing that's notable is that there are lintels left over from previous windows that used to exist here, which you can see in the adjacent building. Those windows still exist. So this is a different property to the south. So it looks like those used to exist in our building as well. These lintels suggest that there used to be openings there at some point. So we're looking at these 3 openings and modifying them. And according to Landmark's rules, like if you have 2 windows, well, in this case, let's say you have 3 windows, they're showing how you can actually combine them. So you can take 2 of them and combine them into a larger opening, such as shown below. So if you have an existing condition, we have some masonry openings, you can merge them horizontally. That's what this is showing. Or you can take, for example, a bunch of masonry openings and merge them into one large opening. Now this is for a rear facade, non-visible facade, which doesn't apply in our case. But it just shows you that some of the guidelines that landmarks have in terms of modifying their openings. This is a technical drawing of the rear facade and the subject windows. So these are the 3 windows that we're looking at modifying. And the dashed red line is the proposed modification. So we want to enlarge this opening to the south by a little bit. And then we want to merge these 2 windows and the previous ones that existed where the old lintels are into one single opening. So this is the proposed modification, is to enlarge the single window on the left and then combine the 2 windows on the right side into this larger opening that goes down to the sidewalk. And this is in context of the entire facade. So again, you can see the various types of windows, like in speaking with landmarks and with the preservationist, they've noted that this building has undergone several modifications over its lifetime. There's not really any consistency in the in this facade. It's kind of a hodgepodge of different kinds of things going on. So we're working with them in terms of coming up with a proposal that is suitable for this area and for this building. And these are photographs, like a photographic representation of the proposed modification. So you can see there's one large window with sliding doors underneath, and then one smaller window that's created from the existing openings. In terms of colors, it's been suggested that we use a dark frame for the exterior. So this is the selected color. It's a bronze color, which for the exterior, the casing is a brick molding casing with this subsill detail. It's a metal clad wood window. So the exterior is metal clad, the interior is wood frame. And these are the installation details for the window. So this is the upper head detail, the spandrel section between the fixed light above and the sliding doors below, and the sill detail of the sliding panels at the sidewalk level. And I think that's all we have.
Could you go back, please, to the picture of the draw there of that one? Is there a modification to the left window? You're just showing it.
This window is changed from a double hung to a single fixed light, and its opening is slightly enlarged.
And so it is enlarged. Okay. And the other to it, the right of it, is a fixed window?
Yes, so upper light is fixed, and the lower portion are 2 sliding doors. So you can actually go in and out from the interior to the sidewalk.
Okay, just regular sliding. There.
Mhm.
And I wasn't clear about the metal and wood. Is it all metal with some wood covering or?
It's a wood frame and it's metal clad on the outside.
Aha,
So
okay.
the
good.
exterior, all you would see
I
is a
thought I
metal
heard that. So
that's bronze colored.
Are there questions from the committee?
Yes, there are. Valerie,
Yeah, can you talk more about the sliding door?
What more did you want to know about it?
So it slides, like it's just very large, right? It's the one on the, it's on the
Very
right.
wide. It's very wide and short, but
Yeah, so its proportions are based on the existing conditions. So that's something we worked on with landmarks in terms of the getting the proportions satisfactory to the preservationists. So it's trying to register the existing sill. So these sills and lintels, these two lintels are existing and this sill is existing. It's not going to be changed. So we're trying to align the spandrel to that existing register, which makes these sliding doors a little bit lower than maybe they would otherwise be. And you can, for context, you can get the scale of a human. There's a person here, so you can get a sense. Like the doors are, I think they're 7 feet tall, so they're not that tall. They're actually quite modest in scale.
thank you.
Anita.
Well, I guess I have two questions. Is one, the scale of this modification doesn't really resemble anything else on this facade. I know you have a lot going on, different size windows, different operation, but then I guess we needed to represent a huge display window. We didn't have that, and then another clear, you know, it looks so sweet when you put those three windows together with the mullions and all that, and what you ended up with is so different. Yeah, and that would be the most beautiful thing in the world that you're referencing. You know, I mean, I guess the bottom line is it's almost impossible to see this. Is this correct? From the public thoroughfare?
You'd really have to look for it, and even if you really look for it, you'd see it on such an angle that you'd never really notice like what it actually is. You just see that.
Yeah, it looks very insensitive to me. It just looks like it's completely out of character with every other scale and size. And that's all. That's
Yeah, so just for reference, like, so this is what you would see from, like, if you stuck your camera through the gate. So I don't know how much you would tell from it. The other thing I wanted to point out is that this building here, which is directly, it's directly opposite of our subject property. The opening there is actually this opening here. So there is precedent for what we're doing. It's not like it's on.
well, you made way worse than that one. And that one's pretty bad too. So I would just be careful about what you reference.
Does this subject property that you cite, has it been approved by the commission?
They have an application for it. He's asked for, he's trying to review the old drawings and he's having difficulty getting the old drawings for this application. They just moved their offices, so I think that's something that we're waiting to confirm.
Does that mean it's already built, or are you showing a?
This is an existing condition directly across from our building. It's.
I know, but I'm saying, is this one that you know to have been approved by the commission?
That's what they're trying to verify. They believe they see an application. They don't know if it's been.
That would make all the difference in the world as to whether it were a valid complaint. So, I
Right.
mean, like comparison.
Understood. Yeah.
It's clearly new and modern.
Mhm.
Are there
Zach, did you
other
have a question?
questions?
Yeah,
Committee?
I had one question. So it looks like, and maybe I'm just reading too much in the rendering, like the glass is going to be used as frosted almost, or am I just reading too much into the rendering of the new?
Yeah, no, it's clear. We
Okay.
just, it's
Okay.
easier to render, so we just rendered the glass the same way as it is above. So they had the shades pulled down above, so it's just picking.
Okay. So it's clear. Okay. Thank you.
So it's showing like a shade in front of the, but the glass is clear, yeah.
Brian,
Okay, so I see more work being done on the facade than what we've talked about so far. I see all the lintels being reworked on all 5 openings. I see all the sill being either reworked or eliminated. And because of the different size of the masonry opening, it seems to me that there is a lot more brickwork on the sides of the openings as well. And then finally, I see that there might be a ramp or something else on the exterior that slopes up to where the patio doors are. Is that not correct? Can you show me anything like that?
There's no ramp, it's just a sidewalk.
Okay, so could you show me the patio door sections again? Okay,
The sidewalk line is this line here.
and that interior floor is an existing floor?
Yes,
And could you show me the section above the patio doors? That one, I think. Yeah. And so there's no ceiling at that level. It's all
Oh.
2-story or story and a half interior.
yeah, it's a double height space inside. There's a little mezzanine, but it's not touching this facade. It's set back.
All right, so that new structural steel beam is going to be resting on the masonry walls at either end, and I don't see that detail or that masonry work there either.
Yeah, that would just carry the window and it would be the header for the slider. So yes, it would pocket into the masonry. So there'll be a pocket here and a pocket here for that beam.
Okay, and then finally, when you're all done with all of this masonry work and all the new lintels that you're going to be remaking, did I see something that changes the color of the wall as well?
No, we're proposing just to leave it as it is existing, which is, it looks like it's been, there's some paint. I mean, there's various kinds of paint on this facade.
You mean to say that you're gonna do all that work and then go back in and kind of patch in the same, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, paint, and then have exposed brick above it? Is that right?
You're talking about this exposed brick?
Yeah, well, that's right, part of the facade.
Yeah, that's a different, that's someone else's apartment. So I think our property is just this part.
Okay, and what is the coloring on the, to the left of the upper apartment?
This?
That part, yeah, what's that?
We're not sure actually what it is. We didn't really take a close look at it. It's not in our scope. We can't even touch it, but it may be parging or it may be paint. We're not quite sure what it is.
Okay, could you define for me what your scope of work is?
It's just these immediately around the openings.
And
So
the doorway with the little side lights are, I mean, that's not your scope of work?
that's existing.
Not
So this-
part of this apartment?
It is part of the apartment, yeah, but it's not in the scope. So they want to leave the door as it is. So this is the existing condition, and really the focus of this application is to modify these windows.
Mhm. All right, well, I would say that's your scope of work, and our scope of work is to look at the whole building or the whole facade and how this change fits in with what's there and what's not going to change. So that's good to know what the limits are. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. I have a question too, and it is a little bit related to Brian's question in terms of the relationship of the subject application to the entire facade. And that is, I want to ask you why you are expanding the window to the left of the large window, because even though there is a variety of windows in this whole facade, including the other building, one repetitive thing is the size of the window that you are proposing. There's several of the similar to the size to the one that you're proposing to expand. And so with this kind of mess of windows, it seems odd to expand that one to the left when right above it and next to it on the upper floors is this run of the same window, which you could continue down to which is what it is in its existing condition. So changing that does make a difference. And I'm wondering why you are making what on some level is a modest expansion, but in terms of how it reads with the rhythm of the facade is a little more impactful.
You're talking about this single window.
So that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It's really to facilitate an interior layout, like it helps in terms of the balance of the interior, in terms of symmetries on the inside. The other driving factor for why we're doing this is the apartment is actually quite dark due to the narrowness of the alley. This is the only natural light that comes into the apartment. So we're really trying to increase the amount of natural light coming into the apartment. That's the kind of primary goal.
Okay, so I understand. It's just, it's too bad that it has a negative impact on the exterior in that way. All right, thank you. Is there anybody else? Let's see, is it Zach, is there anybody else who's a panelist?
There's nobody else who's
From
raised
our,
their hand,
no,
but
but
yeah.
from the committee. Are there any other remote panelists from the committee? who
I have
wish
a
to
question,
ask?
if we're still on the board, if all the other board members, I mean, committee members have spoken.
Yeah, there are no other raised hands. Okay. Sean, go ahead.
Yes, could you go back to the rendering that that showed just the building?
Proposed, new, or existing?
No, with the modifications. There, oh, 2 or 3 back from there.
Mhm.
No, it was, I'm sorry, it's not, it's an elevation.
Oh, look at the drawing.
There, yeah. I can't see that these windows have anything to do with the building. And there are a couple kinds of windows, but they're basically have some historic reference of being double hung sashes. And the idea that the lintels are being sort of made in a non-historic way just to accommodate a plate glass window that gives the appearance of a show window. And downstairs in the sliding doors have no historical reference at all, and indeed looks suburban patio. So I can't understand how this can be an historic building without some historic reference, and I see none.
Mhm.
Okay, if there, Susan, are there?
Yeah,
board or-
Carter.
Yeah, I'm here. Live in the immediate area and,
I'm sorry, who is speaking? I didn't hear.
I should know Carter Booth. I live in
Oh, hi.
the area and immediately adjacent to this space. And, I've spoken before about the importance of the alleyway, Jones Alley or Shinbone Alley. This building, the center feature of this building are the stable doors, which are the huge wooden doors, because this is an old converted stable. And the reference of those high windows is not necessarily out of line with stables, is that's what was often used. And just to your point, what you'd said and Anita had said, there's no reference, and other people have said, there's no reference for these windows. And it really takes away from what the historic importance of the building is, the alleyway. And even though it may not be fully visible, I've said this over and over, this is what brings people here. When you look down the alleyways to see what was there and to suddenly have, you know, what amounts to a display window in a joint live work unit, doesn't make much sense to me. And I just find it completely out of character. I don't know what, I think you summed it up very well, Chenault. I don't want to get in your way of your description, but I just find it, you know, not in keeping with not just landmarks, but the spirit of the area, and you know, just a little bit higher level as well. And while that's not under the purview of the landmarks, it is visible. It is on a historic alleyway. These are very unique. These do represent the history of the area, of its uses through the architecture. And, you know, the prominent feature that's used to market this space is that it's a converted stable and those doors that are there. And this just obliterates all of that with just doors that are left that seemingly have no connection to anything. I would rather see keeping the openings and perhaps reopening some of those lower windows, perhaps, of what exists, and working with the historic fabric instead of just removing everything. I think that, you know, as mentioned, the repetitive aspect of the windows is very clear. You can see it in that rendering. And, you know, certainly understand some of the issues inside, but simply removing the protective metal, you know, wrought iron that's on the windows would certainly open up the light significantly just to begin with. So if that's the reasoning, I just feel like there are other solutions to this problem. And I think there are ways that would better address the important historical aspects here. And I'm not sure that the reference that this building was built in the 1920s is accurate. That's when the front facade and the stoop were removed. I don't think that necessarily relates to the construction of this building. In fact, you know, this space was the connector space between two bond, and from the designation report had the same owners. And this looks like it's the remnants of the stables, you know, from that time period.
Thanks, Gordon.
And when the Department of
It's very
Building,
common that a major renovation of a building can be picked up as the construction date of the building in the records.
Yeah.
I know that from personal experience because my house was built in 1830 and it's listed in the Department of Buildings as 1912 when a renovation was done.
all the time.
So it's clearly an older building. I would like to say something about our obligation to light. This is the building that is, and it's in a historic district. There are other places available to live that have vast windows and a good deal more light, but to rip an ancient building apart in order to get more light seems to be short-sighted.
And Chanel, if I might just comment on the building across the street, I was just in that building last week. That is a commercial space that's connected through to Broadway. And those changes were in keeping with the interior use, even though that's not something that LPC looks at. And I think that if you go back and look at whatever the situation was, that was probably cleaning up a lot of non-historic materials that were in the rear of that, you know, if it were in fact approved, and being used as a reference for an existing historical building to remove all of the historic fabric doesn't make much sense, since neither contribute at all or have any relevance to the historic aspects of these buildings. That, you know, and
Right, and we don't in fact know whether landmarks even approved that work, so there's that as well. One more layer to your point, yeah. All right, is there anybody else who has a question or a comment? Is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak?
If there is, please raise your hand in Zoom.
Okay, it doesn't seem to be Chenault, so I think we can move on. Thank you to our applicant.
Thank you all.
The other application is, Zachary, if you would go ahead and identify the people and be upgrading them.
Yes.
161 West 13th Street. Application is to construct a rooftop addition, construct a rear yard addition, excavate the cellar and a portion of the rear yard below the extension, change the top floor window to a door, and alter the areaway.
If you're here for that application, oh, there we go. I just saw Jacqueline, and then your hand went down, but I'll promote you anyway. Because you're, and now moving around. All right.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
That's
Yes,
just fine, thank
welcome
you.
back after a long absence.
I know, it's so good to see all of you. And I just want to say before I get started, well, first of all, thank you for hearing this application tonight. And secondly, I'm really honored to, I think, be your last presentation of 2023. So thank you all again for your time and for having this second meeting this month. We really appreciate it. Jackie Pudu-Vallon, I'm the preservation consultant on this project. I'm here today with the architects, Elise Irizarry and Tim Welsh of Emporium Design. Should I be sharing my screen? I'm going to start sharing my screen, right? Okay, hold on, bear with me. Okay, can you see this presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. So
And
this is
Jack,
one.
the ones that have a lot of pictures on one page, if you could just enlarge anything that's critical to see in detail.
Will do. Okay. So this is 161 West 13th Street, a Greek Revival style row house built in 1874. The proposal is to lower the steps in the areaway leading down into the understoop entrance and to replace the gate that's there, to construct rooftop and rear yard additions, and to excavate the cellar under the area of the proposed rear addition and under the main house to create better floor to ceiling height in the cellar. There's also restorative work that's being handled at staff level, including removing existing through-wall AC units at the front and patching that masonry. That's just incidentally. And as you can see on this map, the house is located on the north side of 13th Street. Let me zoom in. The north side is 13th between 6th and 7th Avenues. You'll note that its location backs up to 14th Street, which is outside the district. Sorry, technical tips. There we go. So here's just historic photos of the building. Here it is in the 1940s tax photo. And you'll note at that time there was still another house next door to it that's since been replaced by a very large mid-century apartment building that's next door to it. And you can also see in this 2023 current photo on the end that there's an existing alleyway between this house and that mid-century apartment building, which affords a view to the side of the house. Here on top is the north side of 13th, where you can see the rest of the row that this house was built as a part of, which is to say 161 to 147 West 13th were built as a row, basically going up to this temple front building here. Everything you see in between the temple front building and the mid-century building were all part of the same row. However, many of these houses have had various alterations over time. But luckily this house is actually very historically intact at the front. So on the bottom you see, again, these low scale early 19th century row houses. So this is a streetscape dominated by these Greek Revival row houses and anchored by larger 20th century apartment buildings at the avenue. Here's the existing and proposed front elevation drawing showing you the proposed changes at the areaway stairs and the proposed rooftop addition. The change of the areaway would be to lower the entrance into the understoop gate area, which would mean installing 4 stairs as opposed to the existing 2 stairs. This would lower the entrance under the stoop by about 2 feet. So that sill would get lowered by about 2 feet. Here's the existing non-historic gate under the stoop, the existing 2 steps going down into that understoop entrance. Here in plan, you can see the existing stairs on the left, the proposed stairs on the right. Incidentally, part of the proposal is to also remove the existing hatch and to install new bluestone there. The rest of the area would remain intact as is, with its existing bluestone pavers and planting beds. On the left is the existing understoop entrance shown in elevation. And on the right is the proposed condition with a new iron gate, and again, a sill that's lowered by about, or a threshold that's lowered by about 2 feet. Here are exact axons, now switching gears to look at the roof. These axons show us the existing rooftop and the proposed addition. The inspiration for the addition is the studio window additions that happened organically in this district in the early 20th century. You can also see in this axon the volume of the proposed rear addition, which would basically add another floor and also extend out the rear of the existing 2-story addition. Here's the existing building section looking east. You can see that there is an existing 2-story full width addition, as I mentioned on the previous slide here. And here's the proposed building section with a red dotted line to indicate the existing building envelope. So here you can see the proposed rooftop addition, which would have a modest floor to ceiling height at the interior of 8 foot 6 inches. The overall height of the addition at the front of it would be 10 foot 10 inches. Excuse me. And at the rear of it, an overall height of 11 foot 6 inches. There would also be mechanical units on top of it with a railing. And there would also be a metal and glass railing at the front portion of the roof. At the rear, you can see the additional depth of the rear addition and the 3rd floor added on top of that. Lastly, you can also see in this section the depth of the additional excavation under the house, which would be about 4 foot 7 inches. And obviously also excavating under the new rear addition. So here are sections through the roof. Excuse me, showing existing and proposed. Let me know if you want me to pause on anything. Incidentally, I do just want to bring your attention to these flues at the adjacent property. These flues would have to be raised as part of this application, and you'll see some of that later. Here's the existing roof plan, proposed roof plan, and the proposed roof plan showing the top of the rooftop addition itself. Here are elevations looking west and east. And here's the south and north elevation drawn on top. And these bottom photos show you the existing accretions on the neighboring houses in the row, which are mainly bulkheads also finished with a standing seam metal, which is very similar to what's proposed here, which would be a standing seam zinc cladding. And there's also a 1-story addition. Let me zoom in. 1-story addition, 1 house down, which you can see here that I'm circling with my cursor, if you could see that. It's in the middle of that picture. Okay, oops, sorry. So here are some historic photos to illustrate the inspiration for the design of the addition. And I know I don't have to tell all of you about studio windows in Greenwich Village, but here's some nice historic photos of design inspiration that were used by the architect. And here are some similarly scaled, similarly articulated, more recent rooftop additions that LPC approved. This is 44 Horatio, 65 Horatio. 327 West 4th Street on the left, and 78 to 81 Charles Street. Here are existing condition photos of the roof, And here are photos showing you the mock-up that was constructed. This way you're looking east on the left and looking west on the right. And here are some photos looking from the street at what are our most obvious points of visibility. So looking through this alleyway that's existing between the large apartment building and this house, you would see the addition pop up over the side facade. You see that enlarged here. And over the front facade, you would only see the raised flues, again, of the neighboring house, but raising of those flues are necessary because of the construction of this addition. So here, what you see in this sort of blue painted box would really be metal flues. It wouldn't have so much volume or so much massing as this box. It would actually be individual flues. Here are additional photos showing visibility. So this is going across the street. So standing on the south side of the corner at 7th Avenue, looking back at the building, this is what you would catch of the rooftop addition. And going a little bit closer, walking a little bit east again, you would again see the raised flues, which you can see in this, if you can see these sort of blue framed or blue painted wood members here in the top right corner. Now crossing the avenue, looking back at the building, what you would see is the railing over the cornice of the house. And everything you're seeing behind it, those are buildings behind the other side of the block facing onto 14th Street. So I hope this is clear that you can see, you can catch just a bit of the railing mock-up from across 7th Avenue. Now 14th Street is a different story. And I'd like to also remind you that 14th Street, this portion of 14th Street is not in the historic district. It's also this anomalous condition in that this house has the bad luck of having an empty lot behind it. So when standing on the sidewalk on 14th Street, this is what you see of the rear of this house. Incidentally, it's got a lot of trees back there, and they've shed some leaves now, so you do see a bit more of the rear of the house. But when the trees are fully leafed, really all you can see is the top parapet of this house. But here you can see in the highlighted box what you would see of that rooftop addition, and obviously you would catch portions of the rear addition as well. Now crossing 14th Street to the north side of 14th Street and looking across the street, this is what you can see. Here is an axon showing you what the proposed addition would look like. It would take its inspiration from altered T-porches, another typology of rear additions that is unique to the Greenwich Village Historic District in its own way, and create something that the building owner thinks would be really elegant and something that people would actually want to look at if they even notice it from seeing it on 14th Street. But what you're seeing is multi-light windows at each floor, wood spandrel panels in between, and again a full height 4-story addition adding on to the existing addition that's there. So here's existing condition photos of the rear of the house. Because of the depth of the rear yard, it's really difficult, really nearly impossible to get a photo that encompasses the entire rear. So we have to give it to you in pieces, I'm sorry. But on the left is the bottom 2 floors, and on the right is the upper 2 floors. And here's existing and proposed rear elevations. There would be brownstone piers at the bottom, brick at the sides of the addition. The upper floors again would be framed in wood with decorative wood pilasters, cornice at the top of the addition with a railing for the patio that would be created for the top floor rear. Here's that building section again, just to remind you how the volume is changing. And here's some, slides about our design inspiration. So here's 50 Charles Street, which was a historic photo of a T porch, which, as you know, T porches were often filled in by windows over time. So 18 Commerce Street, probably the most famous T porch in Greenwich Village, in the middle. On the right is 58 Morton Street, which is actually a reconstructed, altered T porch that LPC approved a few years ago. And here's some other what we think of as similar additions, similar neoclassically designed additions that we were also using as inspiration for this design. This is at 27 East 11th, 25 East 11th, and 338 West 12th. 27 East 11th was actually one of my projects from like 2012, I think. This is built. The one in the middle, 25 East 11th, neighboring building to that was approved by LPC. It's not been built yet. And 338 West 12th was just approved this year. Now regarding excavation, I just wanted to remind the committee members that the excavation we're proposing is really very typical, very commonly approved by LPC. So here's some examples of projects where a similar scope of excavation was approved. Again, this is 27 East 11th Street, which I just showed you on the previous slide, and 246 West 12th Street, excavation that went out to the rear yard that was approved in 2018. And 338 West 12th, which I also just showed you, and 340 West 12th Street. Again, our scope of excavation is just going to be limited to underneath the body of the house. Here's some historic maps to show you the evolution of this block. It's an interesting block in that very early on, it became very homogeneous, not your typical row house block. And oops. Now we need to put in an intervening Sanborn map to show that at some point we lost the row houses that were facing 14th Street behind this building. But here on this proposed block plan, you can see where there are existing additions, 4- and 2-story additions. I'm sorry, yes, 4- and 2-story and 3-story additions, all on the other houses that are part of this row. So what this illustrates is that this house has really already lost its relationship to the other houses in its row at the rear because of all the additions that have happened there. And I'll show you that more clearly in some photos later on. Here's a rendering showing what the rear of the house would look like from the backyard. These are renderings looking from 14th Street, across the street from 14th Street. Here are material samples, maintaining the look of the existing red brick, brownstone for those pilasters at the bottom of the addition, framing the window openings. A white color, maybe it's more of a cream color for painted lintels and window frames. Bluestone pavers, standing seam zinc for the rooftop addition. Existing and proposed rear yard plan. Here you can see that there would be some excavation in the rear yard just to create, the typical tiered patio plus an upper portion of the rear yard. Here you see in section, existing and proposed rear yard details. And a rendering showing that rear of the house would look like from the empty lot behind it. And that's really our presentation, and we look forward to your questions and comments.
Just a few, please, to begin. The rear addition is how deep?
What do you mean by how deep? You mean how far does it extend into the rear yard?
From the back of the house to the back of the addition?
Okay, let me get to that section. This is okay, so you're talking about the difference between where there's an existing addition and where it would come out to?
Yes, of what's added.
Okay, I don't have that I don't have that measurement on here, so I'm gonna ask the architects to chime in.
You want to do a estimate?
Um, I mean, looks like 4 feet to me, but, or maybe 5 feet, but I'm not sure. Um,
That's,
um,
I'm
Elise,
putting a
Elise
approximate.
here from Emporium
To give
Design.
us a notion of just the scale of it.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
the excavation, could you go to,
Well, actually, before you move on, can Elise Irizarry respond to your question about the addition?
oh, somebody
Would that
knows?
be all right?
Hi, yes, Elise here from Emporium Design. That difference in from the back of the current addition to our extent of the new addition is just over 8 feet. It's about 8'5.5".
What about from the original house back wall to the new house back wall?
That is just over 12 feet.
And to the point of the excavation, whatever the best thing that shows it is.
To the
Okay.
point of the excavation.
The additional depth of
Whichever
excavation?
drawing shows it best.
Well, the additional depth will be 4'7" below the existing floor of the cellar.
Say, I'm sorry, again, I just got to my place to write. How deep?
4'7".
And that goes below the cellar, below the prior addition, and below the new addition.
Below the new addition, it actually does not go under the existing addition. The existing addition does not have excavation under it. It doesn't have a cellar.
This doesn't relate then to the back garden, which is a
Well,
separate. So there are
the
two
back-
separate excavations.
Well, by excavation in the back garden, I mean just because you're going to have this.
Right,
you
yeah, I see
section
that,
here.
that's clear.
You have stairs going down into the new doors going into the basement level. So there is not excavation below grade in the rear
And
yard.
how deep is that?
How tall are these stairs? I don't know. Elise, do you happen to have that dimension? How the rear yard changes elevation from in front of the basement level doors to the upper portion of the rear yard. I mean, it kind of looks like 2 feet to me, but I don't have the exact.
Okay,
number.
getting to all this approximate.
Sorry about that. I was muted. That distance is about the same as the distance that is being lowered in the front. So the existing entry at the garden level in the front under the stoop
Mhm.
is being lowered by 2 feet, and that change in elevation continues through to the existing rear yard. So that portion of the existing rear yard to meet the new lower
Right.
basement level is lowered by 2 feet.
That's clear. Is
Mhm.
there underpinning involved and where?
In
Yeah.
one portion, yes. Well, I can go to a foundation plan for you that's in the appendix. So let's see. Or is this it? This is it. Right. Elise, do you want to speak to this one or shall I?
I can speak to it if you prefer.
Okay.
So portions of it will be underpinned, so you could see the underpinning noted on the east wall, east foundation wall, as well as on the south side, on upper portion of the plan and on the right side of the plan. And there will be some benching on the west end, on the lower portion of the plan that you see with the thicker concrete bench there.
About how many linear feet altogether?
How much?
Approximately.
How much, I mean, of how much
Linear feet
underpinning?
of underpinning.
So the underpinning extends from the existing front to the end of the existing addition, and then the full width on the front end of
So it's
the.
considerable. Yeah, okay. And have you undertaken discussions with the neighbors and engineering and so forth for this? For the underpinning?
Yes, I mean, an engineer prepared this drawing. Elise would have to speak to discussions with the neighboring property's owner, but
Yes, I
these
know,
are
the owner has had a very open dialogue with his neighbors, through the process. I can't speak to the exact conversations he's had
Okay, so you're
so
just.
far with them, but
Oh,
it's,
that's the point.
there's an open dialogue, yes.
Okay, before the questions, could I just say how happy we are to see tripart punched windows in the addition rather than plate glass? Thank you.
I know it's nice, isn't
Hey,
it?
Anita,
Oh, you must have read my mind. I didn't realize, raise my hand. On the rear facade,
speak a little closer to the mic, please.
on the rear facade, there's a rendering.
Mhm.
Can you turn to that for a minute? The white one. Yeah, it looks so odd in that on the ground floor, the side panels are brick, I guess. I don't know. It's very contrasty, and it could be the rendering, but it looks like the building is built on pilotis, like the Corbusier building. So I don't know if there's something that can be done architecturally, so it doesn't look like it's on tippy toes.
Okay. Oh, you mean at the bottom? You're talking about where it transitions at the basement
Yeah.
level?
You have the side brick going up,
Mhm.
down.
Right,
And then you bring the brick in on the lower level.
right.
And
So the
it's very
lower,
contrasty too, so that adds to it, the white and the brick.
so where the white painted pilaster terminates at the bottom, that's supposed to be, that's brownstone. So that would be a cast stone, brownstone, which the architects wanted to do for better waterproofing, better, durability of material where you're touching the ground. But we certainly take this this comment to heart.
Brian,
Okay, I have to say, I was pretty shocked after seeing just the line drawings and various other sections to see this white
Yeah.
mass in contrast to the windows, in contrast to the brick. I thought, what is that? That's not what we've been looking at. That looks totally alien. And I realized that that's the difficulty we're having just with the visual that we're being presented with in the little details on the right side, where you can see the detail, you can see the shadow lines, you can see the softness of the white. That certainly helps, but it's still a huge, huge white mass on a masonry building, basically. And I could not help but think when I saw that this would have been so much easier to accept if this was a softer color, a darker color tone. So that's my comment.
Well, that has been a topic of discussion for the team and something we discussed with LPC staff. The thing is, it's a Greek revival building. So to stay within that color palette of what's appropriate for painted trim on a Greek revival building, you want to stay in white or cream as your painted finish. So that's why we picked a white color for the painted wood members on the back. If you think the white looks too stark, I think LPC would entertain cream as well, but they were encouraging us to go with a lighter color.
I think the difficulty there is that when it's an entire huge addition like this, it no longer
Mhm.
reads as trim. It
Mhm.
reads something much more significant. It is more
Right,
significant than mere trim. And I
right.
think that's where, trim is one thing, but a whole structure just becomes much more important. And Brian, did you have another question or comment?
Okay.
No.
I have a question regarding, if you could take us back to 14th Street so that we can see
Oh,
what's.
could I ask one about the rear before you move on?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. Go
Well,
ahead, Chenault.
why is it white instead of brick?
Because we were trying to recreate the look of an altered T-porch. We were using that as a historical reference to make this addition look more contextual for the district.
But they're only
Um,
1 story.
There
See,
could be one or two. I mean, there were some that were 3, there were some that were 2. We could see, bringing down the wood trimmed portion by a floor and having the upper portion of the addition articulated with brick, with punched openings in a brick facade, which is obviously typical in the district too. So let us know what you think.
Okay, thank you.
To follow on my question, it doesn't look to me like a T-porch anymore because it's so tall. It looks
Mhm.
like a nice clean addition.
Okay.
Okay, Susan,
Yeah, from 14th, if we could have a look from 14th Street again, Jackie, that would be great.
Okay. So these are a couple of views. Sorry, this is kind of dark.
So in terms of the rear facade on 14th Street, is that the 4th floor that we're looking at? What are we looking at here?
With bright white, one thing.
What
other
you're
words,
seeing.
I guess my real question is, if this were to be in white.
Mhm. Well, what you're seeing here is the top floor rear facade rendered.
Okay.
And it would be red brick. The intention is to return it to red brick and take the parging off of it that's there now. And then you're seeing the zinc clad addition on top of it.
Right,
And
then below it, would we see any of what is currently rendered as white?
in the winter, you
Yeah.
would. I mean,
Yeah.
there are big trees there right
you
now.
don't
So
distinguish
let me go back to other photos.
anything about trees. It's the building,
Right.
if you will, absent the trees or the winter view,
Mhm.
that is the way it's considered. So
That would be the white.
Right, I know.
go forward with that.
Would be really prominent from a public thoroughfare then. And the elephant in the room, of course, is that from 14th Street, the entire rooftop addition is maximally visible.
Correct.
And you made the point that 14th Street is not part of the historic district. But my question again is there, I'm not familiar with the exact language. Our typical way of looking at this is it visible from a public thoroughfare? Not, is
You're
it
right.
visible from a public thoroughfare within the historic district? Does
No,
that
you're right.
even exist anywhere, or is it
No.
simply visible from a public thoroughfare?
It's simply visible from a public thoroughfare.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Okay. Anybody else? Andy or Chenault, do you have any other questions?
Nope, but
Nope. Carter?
Nope.
Nope. Anybody in the public? Nope. All right. Going once, going twice. All right. So we have no more questions.
thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is it okay if I hang out and just listen to your deliberation?
Absolutely.
Okay, and I should stop sharing?
Yep.
I just didn't give the wrap at the beginning because I knew it was you and
Thank you all. Before you move on, thank you all for the opportunity. Have a good night. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you.
shall we start with this one since it's the more complicated and it's fresh in our minds?
Sure.
I'll go through in the order of the presentation, then we'll come to the parts that are clearly going to involve discussion. Any of the front areaway, and gate modifications a concern?
I have no
It's
issue.
fine.
No.
Okay, to the point of the rooftop addition, the design of it itself, not considering yet, its visibility.
Well, certainly from the front, the studio type of skylight. Look at it, seems to be very fitting. Materials seem to be fitting and it is not very visible from the street,
From 13th Street.
13th Street.
Yeah.
That's the front, I mean.
Yeah.
The front
And
is,
though it's out of order for the presentation, let's deal with the visibility so that's all together in the resolution. It's difficult because 14th Street is 14th Street. I just passed there today and wondered why on earth that hasn't been built on.
Yeah.
Well, we never, we think of the current condition, and it is indeed the current condition. But if ever there was going to be a changed current condition, this is a prime place for that to be.
Yes.
It's a vacant lot, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I
It's
don't
not
say
like
to go against guidelines, but
something.
Vacant lot. I just looking at the addition in general on the roof, forget about the rear. We've approved so many others that look so similar to this. I think it would be difficult for us to disapprove the design. The visibility is a different question, but I
Yeah.
think the design, it's even with the visibility from the rear, the design is in keeping with many others that we've seen and approved.
Better than many we've seen.
Yeah.
Like,
Agreed.
okay, any visibility problems other than 14th Street?
So, I mean, the raised chimneys next, I mean, that's just a typical consequence of any addition. There's nothing objectionable there.
Okay,
so
what
my-
do we say about 14th Street?
A nice presentation.
There was a lot to say before about 14th Street.
what are you saying about 14th Street? What do we have to say?
Yeah,
now?
the 14th, it seems the only outstanding point about the rooftop
Gosh.
addition is the visibility from 14th Street.
Well, that does not bother me because
Oh.
A, it won't stay there forever, and B, it'll probably be the nicest, cleanest thing you can see in there, so.
I agree with Anita.
So
And it would be a typical
think, you know,
view.
Sorry,
I
Sean.
thought it would be a typical view of the back if there were something there from the, whatever would be there. If there were a house there, that's the view it would have. And we would find that, I think, acceptable.
And it's.
Yeah.
It's not
the
ugly,
fourth
it's
floor,
a
too.
question of degree of visibility.
That's fine.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't think this is the hill to die on in terms of visibility from a public thoroughfare. I was just curious about that, you know, that's why I asked Jackie about what that ruling actually is. But, you know, the feeling of it, we'll get to talking about how white it is and the size of it and all that. But the feeling of it, if you walk by 14th Street, is that you were catching something that was there and that was appropriate. And I think, you know, the intention of, you know, when we hold very fast the visibility thing, the intention is not only visibility, but visibility of something that is inappropriate. And I think that's
Hopefully, what I've
distinction.
said from time to time, we had a marginal amount of visibility that we felt was acceptable, was that it didn't disturb.
Yeah, and there's.
In the course of looking around the village, you see this sort of thing.
Exactly. So I think, you know, I don't have a problem justifying the visibility from 14th Street because what is being proposed is completely coherent with the historic architecture of the district.
Then we'll move on to the rear addition. So far, we're fine with everything as presented. The rear addition, we know about what it is. The only question I heard about it was its color and the
Also,
the
I think
treatment of the
I
bottom.
think stretching it, a T house or whatever we call those, T addition. Maybe there's one that's 3 stories, but I've always seen them as like a 1-story addition. So this is almost like an entirely wood infill rear facade. It's like an infill facade. There's no masonry, it's just wood.
I can imagine a reasonable person looking at it and not saying this is a addition to the back of the house.
Yeah, exactly. So.
The
and
way it's
that may
filled
be
in
okay.
also is often a tea house will be filled in a more tea housey looking way. And this looks like the back wall of the house.
Well, it's a little unusual. We don't usually see an entirely wood facade, by the way. We see a steel infill with brick around it. So this is a very unusual way to approach it, actually. I mean, it's nicer than if.
Given that it
were
is what it is, what about the color then?
Everything turns gray in New York, I hate to tell you. But I think it's too bright white. I don't know that there's any precedent for that even.
And, even, let's say it's cream, not, white, which is a reasonable expectation. Still, that will read, that color will be so contrasty and so dominant that I think it's a problem. The applicant alluded to the possibility of white on the 2 stories, on the lower 2 stories, and something darker on the top story.
Even brick.
And
She
even brick,
mentioned.
she said, and I think, that's something,
That would be better.
I think that we should discuss that. What is?
And the
Not me.
the punched windows
What's the
work
matter?
against the white because it's a white wall with punched windows. It's not in any way trim.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
There is such a thing as parged back walls, and we've seen those. But this
but that's
is
not what this is, right?
probably usually because the brick's in lousy condition, but
No, it's paneled. It's a very unusual treatment. I don't know that it,
then here's then our question. Do we ask for another color, treating it the same way, or do we ask that it be natural brick? I can't think of any other choices.
I think we should ask for both.
brick or it's more.
Either or.
The upper part in brick and the lower part in a softer cream.
Both.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the board.
It's hard to tell what they're proposing anyway with these renderings are not that sophisticated yet,
Right,
but
but it's white paint as opposed to brick, or paint as opposed to brick. The white cream is a small point.
Yeah, I kind of feel sorry for them because that's a very high maintenance type of
yes.
exterior finish. My goodness.
Brian's point,
Yeah, nobody
it
wants to
seems
be
like it would have
retaining.
to have some sort of architectural element to differentiate the taller floor from the 2 above it, because it's now just one wall.
It's a big ask. I don't think they're gonna jump at that opportunity. That's redesigning the whole facade.
I'm looking for somebody to say what we say. Or what,
Well, you know, as we all
Would
know.
we like
it's
to
not-
say brick, or would we like to say a different color paint, or would we
Well-
like to approve what's there?
I don't personally think we should approve what's there without some modifications.
Okay, so we want a
But I
modification.
don't think it's really for us to design the solution here. It's clear that there are a couple of different solutions. One of those solutions would be to not use white. Another one would be to do the top floor of the addition in brick. And I don't think that it's for us to make that decision, but I think it is for us to say that that the white, because of the color and because of the scale of the addition, is excessive, and that we don't approve it as presented, but that one of those other solutions, you know, would be fine.
Maybe even paint the windows a color. It's so washed out now, everything's just white on white.
How's that, Chanel? Is that helpful?
Say that again, I started typing.
Is that helpful at all, or have you got something?
Okay, I'm saying deny the white and treat the back wall in a less bright or aggressive manner.
I think that's accurate.
Yes,
Yeah,
good.
Contrasty is a good word.
contrast is the word here, yeah.
You know, I'm not sure if this factors in, but the designation report is interesting. It said that this is the best preserved building in a row of the buildings, and it's and that it's intact. And in fact, what's even more interesting is it calls out that the windows were replaced with 8/8s, but it now appears as if they're 6/6s. So it's actually been very well, or it is a you know, very fine example of the historic, and one of these historic buildings in this particular area. But one of the most interesting things is that they talk about the original iron hand railings, and I just want to note that those are preserved in this, even though they're being moved. And I just, as a compliment to the work that they've done here. There's very little written in the designation report, but they, you know, those two items which are highlighted
Are respected.
That's all the front.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cordy. Yeah, thanks for that.
Our next is the excavation. The garden seems simple.
Yep.
And the cellar is extensive, so we would, I presume, approve it as we usually do with that section about being careful and
Standard language, yeah.
and all that. Okay, to be clear, the only thing that is asked for change is the color of the back wall. Is that correct? Everybody-
Yes, as we've discussed, yep.
Okay. Then, Great Jones.
There's a lot wrong
It
here.
seems clear that we want to
There's-
deny
I
what
don't
was
know what's
presented.
right.
The
I
question
mean,
is
it's
what
all
we said.
wrong, you know?
Sorry, Susan, I was talking over you.
Oh, sorry, I don't know what's right. It all seems wrong, so I don't
Tell the
know.
microphone.
Sorry, I said, I don't know what's right here. It all seems wrong, and you know, the need for light in the interior is, you know, what is driving the entire application, and that's not really our concern. Our concern is the building.
And
And
no
there's nothing
historic
that can
reference seems
justify,
to
there's
just-
nothing that justifies this, you know, it is visible, whether it's hugely visible. It still is visible. I think alleys are rare and important in our district. There aren't very many of them, and I think we need to take the conditions, whatever we can, in terms of preserving any sense of history of these alleys very seriously. They're a precious commodity here. And the patio doors, I mean, even the word patio doors, it's like we're not in suburbia here.
These
We're
are 5 foot wide. That is, so you have a 10-foot opening divided into 2. I mean, who even makes things like that? That's not
Okay,
practical.
but it's clear that we don't want it.
You
Right.
don't want
I
it.
would say in considering it, if this were a row house and it was the back wall of the row house to the garden, we would be equally,
Yes.
talking about it.
yeah.
It's,
Is there anything to
definitely
do
wrong.
except to recommend denial?
Yeah, I don't see what we could even say to. Don't say anything positive.
I agree. And also, you know, on top of all of that, the reference point here across the alleyway is of unknown respectability. And
It's kind of sad.
no, it's not a credible, at this point, it's not necessarily a credible reference because we don't even know how legit it is.
And it also seems like it's a much smaller scale.
Much.
What I saw on that alleyway across the way was a standard sized door and then a relatively small plate glass window next to it. So maybe half of the size of this, the one that we're being shown.
And the way this unites the two floors, I thought perhaps it was going to be a double height room inside.
It is.
It is.
So that I mean, we're not making any recommendations. We're simply denying it for all the reasons that will be outlined.
Removing historic fabric, removing historic significance. Changing the character, the reflection, even if, for example, you can't see the window. The way the light interacts and so on, you know, you perceive it maybe in other ways. So
Lack of historic reference.
it's a net.
And you could try to justify it with the same holes filled with something that had historical reference in wood and so forth. And
Well,
not
they started
movable plate glass.
nice too. They started showing us 3 windows and then poof.
So there's
everything
nothing,
disappeared.
there's nothing to approve and no recommendation to be made.
Yeah.
Additionally, Chenault, a lot of the work in the alleyways in contemporary times, and it may not need LPC approval, is the removal of sort of the fortifications that were used to make it more resilient to theft. You know, and those are the metal gates and the grates, et cetera.
Security.
And there's nothing that references that just that simple step here would be a step forward in trying to accomplish what they're looking for. And then there's no reference to opening up the existing windows. I know rehashing this, but the point is that a lot of the work that's been done here is because everything was so roll down gates, you know, everything all over all these alleyways. And so as you naturally open them back up, they retain the historic feel because that's what has changed the nuance.
Right.
But the original fabric exists underneath. And this is a double height space because it was a stable on the interior. So
Well, this looks like it'd be good in a red light district. You could really have some display windows. There's no reference for any and they would always have
Can
their
we move on?
down.
We decided this. So can we move on?
Yes.
Yes.
What else?
The curtains would always be closed too, so it's not even.
There was, which affects this committee and everything else, there was I suppose, listening session, from the borough president concerning hybrid meetings and modifications of hybrid meetings. Susan gave testimony for the board, and I gave my own
You
testimony.
can't, not Susan me.
That's Susan.
And suggesting to keep hybrid. I was at the meeting for maybe an hour, a little more, and a number of community boards were represented, 6 or 8 maybe, and it was universal to keep hybrid for
Interesting.
reasons that have been brought up before. So that's where it is. The purpose of this was to assemble the sense of the community of community boards to pass along to the legislature. The other question is does everyone understand the modification and the reason for it from the
Are
can't
we
remember
coming from one thing or are we commenting on
from the
each?
application last month that they do need to come back because otherwise we can't fulfill the obligation to make a recommendation about the 74-711.
We're talking about 10th Street.
And
Say
the amendment to the resolution as written, it has to be rewritten in several places, but it's dead simple that instead of pushing it back to the commission, that they will come to us for this, specifically the facade restoration and the maintenance program. Is all that clear?
How does that, since I believe I'll be presenting that to the full board, I would present the one that was voted on, correct?
Yes,
And
and
then
Susan
wait
said
for
you can
someone,
present the amendment as well.
So there's an issue with that one. Florence came in here before everyone got here and said that there was not a vote count listed for that one.
Can you speak better to the mic? I'm missing you.
Sure.
This won't go anywhere.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, so for 66, whatever this West 10th one is, 66, 68 West 10th, Florence Arenas came in here before everyone arrived and said that she has been emailing both you, Chanel, and Susan Gammy asking for the vote count for that resolution. So if you have that, if you could send it through to Florence so that it can be put in the board package. I'm not sure why that is missing.
I'm not sure that it is missing. I thought it said unanimous on that. We
No,
should check,
it was unanimous, that's why.
and I think it said that.
So yeah, so it's 6:15 PM. She came in here and said there was no vote count listed. So perhaps you would want to follow up with her over
Okay,
email
fine,
or with
thank
Mark
you.
Diller.
Thank you. Are there other questions about this?
well, I don't think I got my answer. What happens? I could present on behalf of,
Susan will tell you the time. And maybe you want to have a word with her so it's handled exactly right. But what she said is that you can present the resolution and then you can also present at the proper time the amendment.
well,
And being clear that this is not an action of the committee, but Anita is just presenting an amendment. And it's well that we're discussing and agreeing, but it's not a committee amendment, it's an Anita amendment.
yeah, in other words, we want to change it. We're proposing a change.
And the reason we couldn't change it tonight is because it wasn't advertised as being on the agenda, and we couldn't do it because there's not time to make the week's notice, so that was out.
Chanel, I would suggest that it's printed in with the changes in the.
I'm going to send out the entire modified version
Yeah,
with the changes without striking out and the new ones in red. I'm just trying to avoid these ridiculous situations with any sort of motion outside the main motion that it seems to take hours and everybody gets irritated and.
Right.
This is just
Anything
request.
else for discussion?
I would want to
Oh,
clear,
oh, yes, to remind everybody, please send along from the email that I sent, examples that should be looked into of possible landmark violations. Carter, I'll send you what I sent to the committee, which has to do with the fellow that's helping us to identify violations and take note of them, and eventually it will turn into complaints that we can send to the commission. It's all explained in the email I'll send.
Valerie has her hand up, Sean.
yeah, I just wanted to clear up about the open meetings law that Susan Kent, the chair, was not speaking on behalf of the board. She was speaking on behalf of herself, since the board does not have a past position on the open meetings law moving forward yet.
Susan gave testimony.
Right, it was just as herself, though, it wasn't the board's position, because she had said like eliminating a quorum requirement in totality, and that's not a board position.
Okay, I'm just reporting what I heard.
Just letting everyone know, just for the record.
Okay, are there anything else along? As soon as you can send the, there's a vacation from school, so Dion has time to actually go about and work on these and get proper pictures and so forth. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry that we'll miss the board meeting, and we'll meet again next month for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.